Good evening and good morning, wherever you are. Welcome to another episode of The Future of Everything by CSPA. CSPA stands for California Software Professional Association. It is a volunteer-based 501c3 nonprofit. It was founded in 1988 by Silicon Valley legends. We host monthly community events to promote innovation, entrepreneurship, and leadership. I'm proud to share that CSPA started the Future of Everything speaking series before Wall Street Journal did. The future of the event could not be more timely. Did everyone get your vaccine or microchip yet? I'm thrilled to have ISA fellows, David and Joshua, and a panel of distinguished futurists and internet influencers with us tonight. David is a serial entrepreneur, initiator of the Overweb, NGI ambassador. He is the CEO and the vision keeper of Bridget. Joshua is a data scientist, AI researcher, and systems engineer. He is a founder and chief data scientist of WISE Research Institute. Henry, our CSPA chairman of the board, is out celebrating his big milestone, some decade birthday. Otherwise, he would have been with us tonight.
Happy birthday,
so
Henry.
Without further delay, I'd like to turn this over to David and Joshua.
All right. Thank you so much, Nikki and Henry, for creating this space, the future of everything. We're really excited to bring to this virtual space the future of the web. Joshua, Armai, and I are going to talk about the future of the web. We hope to also give you some insight about the present of the web and the past. Nikki, I'm going to start sharing my screen. Is that enabled? Not yet.
Give me 1 second.
So the big thing that we're doing is catalyzing a shift from an attention economy that hurts people and concentrates power in a few internet platforms to a knowledge economy that has the possibility for the everyday person to earn value for their opinions, their thoughts, their creations, and also at the same time create the foundational infrastructure necessary for the massive collaboration that's necessary for us to address all the different issues and problems that we're facing as humanity. So I'm gonna just come on over to this deck and we'll jump right into it. Well, I'm not really trying to share it, am I? Okay, 1 second. There we go. So what we're really talking about right here is a web that is safe, protection that comes over the web in a meta layer that enables social governance for an open internet. This is something that hasn't been done. The internet does not have governance, and we call this the overweb, the next level of the web. So just before we get started jumping in, I want to presence that the Overweb has a council. This council is newly formed. It's me, Joshua, who, as Nikki mentioned, is the lead scientist at the WIASI Foundation, as well as the Overweb. Gideon is the founder of the Global Blockchain Hackathon. Zanette is a PhD from Stanford who's taught at the D School. Janae Roscoe is in development over at Operation Hope. And Fasa is he's a data scientist. He's also actually he calls himself a data ecologist. Let me get right. And he's running a startup that has to do with health, which you'll hear a little bit about later. So this attention economy that optimizes for your attention, it's led to a fragmentation of the web beyond recognition. Information is in data silos, people are in filter bubbles and search bubbles, and all that is indistinguishably mixed with false information and fake accounts. Does anyone have any idea how many fake accounts that Facebook took down in 2019? If you do, put it in chat. Let me see some guesses. How many fake accounts did Facebook? They have over 3 billion people on their platform. How many fake accounts did they take down? Okay, so we got 100 billion. No, that's a little bit high. 2.1 billion is high. It's low. 2.5 million, 100 million, 500 million. It was 6 billion. 6 billion accounts. It's amazing. And the fake accounts are really integral to this attention economy. So we're really in a situation that's very much similar to that parable about the 6 blind men and the elephant, where each of the blind men is looking at a different part of the elephant. The one is touching the trunk and they think it's a snake. The other one is touching the tail. They think it's a rope. None of us have a full picture. And because of that, we can't really see the elephant in the room until it poops on us. The typical responses are that people don't trust the web. People are doing a lot of cutting and pasting into documents, and they're retreating to small networks, both of which continually fragment the internet even more and put more and more information in silos. The result is there's a diminishment of productivity and collaboration. So there's this piece of the web, a big missing feature that an internet insider identified in 2012. It's something that was in the first web browser. It was in the web before the web was even called the web. It was actually removed in 1995. And we believe that that has something to do with where we're at right now, with misinformation impacting the 2016 elections. And in 2020, we find with COVID and the US election that we have even deeper problems. So I'm just going to reveal that this big missing feature is annotation, the ability to layer knowledge on top of web pages. And there was actually an annotation standard passed in 2017, which was led by none other than Dan Whaley and a number of other people who came together to get the WC3 behind this. Dan is going to give you a little bit of the modern history of web annotation in just a few minutes. But I will say that we are endeavoring to reinstall this big missing feature. Why? Well, it's super important. And like I said, this is the feature that was supposed to be in the web from the start, but didn't make it. Why is it important? It's important because annotation is essentially the ability to layer knowledge on top of knowledge. This was always supposed to be part of the web. This is part of knowledge building. One person puts out a piece of information, someone else comments on it, another person comments on it. This is an active conversation that's generative, that creates knowledge. It's basically like putting a conversation into text and doing it on the web. And it was supposed to be there. Mark Andreessen, the builder of the first browser, the widely distributed browser, also a major VC right now, he's the one who said that annotation is the big missing feature. He says, I often wonder how the internet would have turned out differently if users had been able to annotate everything, to add new layers of knowledge to all knowledge, on and on, ad infinitum. So this is what we're building on right now. But I'm gonna actually step back and ask Dan to give us a little history on where we are with annotation right now on the web. Dan, you have 3 minutes.
All right. Hey, everybody. I will make it brief. And I've got a page here. Oh, if I can screen share for 1 second, I would show you just one page. I don't know if you can flip it to me.
Nikki, can you?
Yes.
By the way, Dan is the CEO of Hypothesis. They are a pioneering web annotation tool. Has been around over 10 years and yeah, doing amazing work. Dan, thank you for being here.
Appreciate that. Okay. And I'll drop this, the URL to this document here.
Said you weren't watching it.
in the chat so everybody can see it.
What?
Okay. And there's one person who's not on
Mute
mute
your computer?
who might want to. Mr. X.
Yes. Oh
Might
my
wanna-
God. I apologize.
No worries. Okay. Hey, everybody. My name is Dan Whaley. As David said, I work on the Hypothesis Project. We're an open source organization working towards these same goals, to bring an annotation layer over the web. But I'll talk a little bit about the history in just a few minutes. So I think the headline is that the people who imagined the web, even before the web was created, so Vannevar Bush in the 40s, Ted Nelson in the 60s, Tim Berners-Lee when he articulated and suggested the web, all imagined a place where people could both knit information together and knowledge together, but also have a meta conversation over that knowledge at the same time. And so this concept, which we're kind of calling annotation or overweb or whatever, was really part of the founding idea of the web from 60, 70 years ago. And what we got instead was a publisher's web, sometimes people call it, which is a browser and then a set of pages that we browse, but we don't have the ability to really interact with each other over that. But it's an old idea, and a lot of people have tried to do this. So this spreadsheet that I've shared here is our compendium over 10 years of going back into time. You'll see the first entry here is NCSA Mosaic, and just almost 70 and more now in the last couple of years. We just haven't kept it up as much, of projects that have in one way or another tried to do this. Third Voice back in '99, UTalk, the Annotation project, which was an early W3C effort to standardize this. People might have heard of Reframe It, or Genius, obviously more recently. And so, I think that, the headline here is we're making progress. Standards have been passed in 2017. A lot of people, there's a lot of energy coming together around this. Google just launched the being able to share a highlight natively in the browser. And the guy, David Bocon, who's the lead on that project, is now circulating a document that suggests that Google's going to get much more deeply into the annotation space and kind of ship it as a native feature of the browser here just in the last couple of weeks. So that's the brief history. I really just want to say from our perspective, we welcome the energy of people that want to try to solve this problem. I think anybody who is focused on this and putting honest kind of collaborative energy into it is a knight, and should be kind of applauded and encouraged. So we're super happy.
Dan, can you mention the politics or the technology reasons why they didn't put the annotation in '95?
Well, if you're talking about Mark, Mark has Andreessen, who Mosaic, they implemented it briefly for about 2 months, and they were trying to build a web browser and ship a web browser, and that's a hard enough problem. And they built this kind of group annotation thing in. They beta tested it, but that would have had to been a server that would have had to scale to the size of the web and handle all the conversations and everything. And I think they, from my understanding of the different stories that I've heard, basically felt like they were trying to do too many things at once. And they had some questions fundamentally about about how to go about it, and so they decided to axe it. And he kind of regrets it now, but maybe that was the right decision at the time.
Well, thanks so much. Nikki, can you bring back screen sharing for me? Yeah, you know what also I'd note is that there was no cloud at that time, there was no peer-to-peer, and Microsoft was preloading Internet Explorer on machines for free. So it was a competitive threat, it was a technology issue, it was easier to take it out. All right, I'm gonna just go back to my presentation.
Cool.
All right. So with Overweb, we are transforming the legacy web to a virtual space with smart tags and NFTs. So you see at the bottom of the screen, today's 2D web page. At any given point on the web page, you can do 1 or 2 or 3 different things. You can read it, you can maybe select it, maybe you can click a link, but that's pretty much it. It's very, very limited. So if you're on a social media site, you can do just the few prescribed actions that they give you, 280 characters, create or share event, like, share. Everything is really prescribed and controlled. So what we want to do is really open it up, and we're creating the first blockchain that will store annotation data in a way that enables the everyday person to earn money for the information, the expertise, the thoughts. And what we're using these smart tags to do is to enable people to connect information, interactions, transactions, and experiences to pieces of content on a web page. So to a sentence, to a segment or a piece of an image, to a segment of a video, a segment of a piece of audio, or a tweet, a Facebook post. We're going to be putting these annotations that people create in NFTs, wrapping them in an NFT so you know who created them, who's the owner of them, and then those go on this public blockchain that we're creating. It's an open source tool, and it's going to be made available to everybody, so that, like I said, we can not only have people earning from their information and their knowledge, but also to support the massive collaboration that's needed to address these different existential threats that humanity is facing. So a couple unique things about what we're talking about with the Overweb is to uniquify the user. So there'll be one account per user. We're also going to be supporting human AI systems and eventually the spatial web. One really interesting thing that we're doing with the Overweb is creating the possibility of overlay applications. So these are applications that are active over every single web page. So it's not that you have to go to a domain, they're actually resident in the browser. That's something that our overchain blockchain supports, decentralized apps that operate code in the annotation space above the browser. So what is it that really makes the Overweb special? Well, there's 3 things, and we call it the Overweb Pattern. So the first thing is safe digital space. And this is the notion that everyone that you encounter in this layer, the Overweb, is a real person in good standing with the system, because everybody has one account. So there's this knowing that if they're out there on the system and you can see them, that they're actually a real person and that they're in good standing with the system. The second thing is on-page presence. And this is the notion that you can go visible on any web page, and this will now allow people to meet others of common interests. And then the third thing is on-page interaction. So you'll have hundreds of smart tags that you can use anywhere on the web. And when people use these smart tags within an information ecology, it makes the thinking visible. It provides the possibility of 360-degree context and rewards to people based on how other people are using their information. So we're going to go deep into the pattern. The first thing, safe digital space. Well, the problem is that the internet is unsafe. There's no governance. There's no accountability. It's basically the wild, wild west.
Yes.
As I mentioned, Josh, you want to jump in?
Go ahead. Keep going.
So as I mentioned, there's one decentralized main account per person. And that means that you know everybody's real, right? Because if they weren't and they got deactivated, they wouldn't be on the system. So there are no fake accounts, no unidentified bots, no serial abusers, and no throwaway accounts. And then to preserve people's privacy, we're setting up the system so that every person can have multiple personas. And that's because I'm different with my mom than I am with my business partners, than I am with a romantic partner. And that's the same with everybody. We all have different personas that we bring that we bring depending on who we're with. So it should be the same way on the internet. So if I'm on a ski site, I should be able to have my ski persona where it shows what mountains I've skied and what kind of conditions I like best and maybe what kind of equipment I like. If I'm on my business site, it might say what books I've written, what certifications and credentials I have. And then the key thing around privacy is that you're able to visibly or invisibly tie your personas to the main account. So I could be out on the web as Ski Bum 333. You don't know who I am, but you know I'm a real person in good standing with the system. So some of the things that you have with your personas, you have the ability to credential them. You can use the personas actually like a VPN so that these sites that are trying to track you, they don't even know who exactly you are. You can optionally have your activity data tracked. You have to opt into that. That's the difference. If you don't, then it's not tracked. But if you do, then it becomes available for use with AI. You can have your own personal AI. You can also opt in to a data cooperative where your information is being licensed to other people and you're getting rewarded for it. So we want to create situations where people can actually earn based on what they're bringing to the table. The other thing is personas can be parts of digital nations, which we'll talk about later. And importantly, something that doesn't exist on the web right now, a smart filter. Because if you're going to have people all over layering information on top of the web, then it's really important that we have sophisticated, transparent, adaptive filters that enable us to tune what exactly we're seeing so we're not going to be overwhelmed. And then the last thing I want to mention here is that on a digital nation basis, there will be each of them will be able to define a response to inappropriate conduct and inappropriate content that they as a community define, and they can decide on the how they want to moderate their community and how many warnings people get before they have to go into quarantine, and then how they just have to just be on the web as like final. On-page presence, the problem is it's really hard to meet someone. It's so funny. During the, I guess it was about 4 months ago, someone invited me to be part of a dialogue series called Dialogues 1. I was on it with 3 people. One of the other people, once I told her about what we were doing with the Overweb, she said, "Oh, wow. There's someone that I know that you should talk to. They are doing something very similar to you." And I said, "Oh, really? Where are they?" And she said, "Oakland." I said, "Oh, wow. Well, that's where I am." Well, the trippy thing is, I talked to him and he is doing something similar. It's not exactly the same thing, but something very similar. And I just think it's crazy that you can have people right around you in your same city, same town, that are doing very similar things. And we may never meet them. I've probably been in the grocery store line with him, but I didn't meet him. It's hard to meet people. And now it's even harder with COVID. And it's almost impossible on web pages other than social media because, well, it's like a ghost town, right? You're isolated on web pages. It seems like no one else is there. There could be 100,000 people on that web page at the same time as you, but it seems like no one else is there. And then you can go to social media, and yes, you can meet people there. Hopefully it's not a fake account.
What time you want me to call?
What's that?
6:30.
Can we get some mutes happening?
Yeah,
So
please
this is
mute
led
yourself
to
if you're not speaking.
a deep fragmentation. But with the Overweb, we're looking to enable people to meet each other based on common interests. So by default, on every web page, you're invisible. But you can choose to go visible on any selected page. You can even make your cursor and in the future, an avatar visible on the page. Now, this can be on a digital nation basis, on a group basis, or even within a decentralized app, meaning that I might be able to see everybody within my digital nation or one of the digital nations that I'm in, or within a particular group, or within the group of people that are using a certain decentralized app. Now, if I'm visible on a web page, I can see the personas, the active personas of every other person who's visible on that web page, and those that have been on that web page earlier, if they have that set up in their preferences. You can, if I'm on a page, I'm visible, I see someone's persona, I'm looking, oh wow, they've skied several of the mountains that I want to ski, but they've also skied all the mountains in the Alps. I want to go to the Alps. Let me reach out to them. I have the option to connect to them. I can suggest a chat in the future, voice chat, audio, etc. So it's a way to meet people that you wouldn't otherwise meet. And then the third piece of the pattern is on-page interactions. So this enables indirect collaboration over the web through content. And as I mentioned earlier, you will have access to dozens, if not hundreds of smart tags. So you could put a note on an Instagram image, create a contradictory bridge from a sentence in a news article to a segment of a YouTube video or a TikTok where the person in the video is saying something that directly contradicts what was written in the news article, in that particular sentence of the news article. You can put a poll on a podcast. So there's this new layer of interactivity with the content that enables us to actually build knowledge together for the first time online at scale. What does it do? Like I said, knowledge building, it makes thinking visible. It creates the possibility of 360-degree context for anything you're looking at on the web. So if I'm focusing my attention on a image, I could see everything that people thought was directly contradicting to it, or supported by it, or cited by it, or I could see conversations or polls or any of the tags that people have attached to that piece of content now become available to me if they're public. This is how people will earn rewards. The OWB is our token, and if you create a bridge or a node or some other smart tag that gets a lot of attention, then you will get rewards in the tokens. This is a future of work. It is not the future of work, but it is a future of work. So that's the pattern: on-page presence, safe digital space, and on-page interactions. I'm going to go a little bit deeper into what we think is the most important of the smart tags. That's the bridge tag, because of some reasons that I'll tell you in a second. But as I was saying, it's basically enabling us to connect a piece of content on one page to a piece of content on another page. It could be a sentence, a paragraph, a piece of an image, a part of an image, a video or audio. And you have content A, you have content B, you have a relationship. So it could be conflicting or supporting, it could be citing. You also have metadata and analytics. And the beautiful thing about the bridge is there's so many different types you might want to do. Well, you might want to connect evidence to claims. You might want to connect a study to a piece of news. You might want to connect media to text that's talking about the media. You might want to connect even text to media, like a transcription to a video, or something from the past to a piece of news. There's just so many different use cases for a bridge. And the beautiful thing is, another beautiful thing about a bridge is if we verify that the relationship between content A and content B is correct, then we can drop it into a knowledge graph. This can be a universal knowledge graph that connects all the information. This creates the possibility of a 360-degree contextual view of everything related to an idea. So the nodes are the pieces of information on the web, and the spokes, they go out to other nodes. The color of these spokes is based on the relationship. So the green would be supporting, the red would be conflicting, the yellow could be citing, and so on. The thickness can be determined by AI based on a reliability score. So there's a lot of really interesting things that we can do with this. And if someone wants to have a map view and then put their cursor over a particular piece of information, they can see all the information that's associated as an aggregation. So these are the different relations, how much contradicting information versus supporting versus citing information. Here are the different types of media. It could also have the different types of smart tags that are attached to it. And then you could then use that as a way to filter it out. And if you wanted to, you could always double click and see more information, see the entire bridge, the other contextual information, as well as the information about the node. Josh, you have any more thoughts? You want to jump in here and talk a bit about the graph and then jump into the chain?
Okay, so basically, there's a lot of information being discussed here that is correlating with the point that we're making around information being transparent. And the idea of a graph is technical, but what we want to do is make a social system out of a graph. And what that represents is that right now, whenever you use your identity on the internet, you're already connected to many things, whether it be your online banking, your taxes, whether it be your social media accounts, but you typically have to create duplicate accounts for every single thing that you use for services and your data. And when you look at the graph that we're talking about, creating a bridge can be also for your identity. So when you are, as one person, moving across the world and the digital space, you're able to connect all the information in the web back to you so that you can track all your data on the internet. And one of the biggest problems right now is managing and tracking all the data that you generate as an individual. And you can think about this as a personal perspective, and then it goes into groups. When you look at communities and zip codes, such as people of color are affected by certain types of issues, and as groups, they make buying decisions. They make, school decisions. They make investment decisions, but they also make neighborhood decisions. Like, they are connecting the dots all the time, but they're using the telephone. They're meeting in person. They're not really using the internet as a utility for communication when it comes to organizing their needs. So going back to the point of a graph, we want to be able to also empower communities of various backgrounds to be able to organize and build utility out of the web. And that's one of the other benefits of the graph being utilized as a data structure for this powerful implementation, because bridging can be applied and also leveraged for digital identity as it relates to all the connected elements on the web that you have. So that's enough there. So basically, the blockchain we're building is a Tendermint compliant blockchain. What it basically means is that Tendermint created the Cosmos SDK. Projects like Binance's decentralized exchange or smart chain, Kosh, Regen Network, and others have used Tendermint to power their blockchain. And one of the reasons why it's important to build a layer one solution here is that we want to be able to leverage the level of governance. that is existing on the blockchain itself. So it's one thing to build a Dapp, but then you have to adopt the governance of whatever blockchain you build on. Such as if I build a Dapp on Ethereum, I have to adopt the way that you build on Ethereum and create a level of abstraction from the technology so that everyday people can use it. And one of the biggest problems in adoption for everyday people with blockchain is they don't know how to onboard into a wallet, let alone navigate all the dApps that are available. So with us being able to build a layer one solution, we want to build dApps for misinformation, for fair value exchange, and for digital nations. This idea of NFT annotations, an NFT is just a way to tokenize data. In this scenario, we want to be able to aggregate rich data sets and stick them on the blockchain. So an annotation by itself, let's say you have a Trump tweet, and that Trump tweet during his presidency was on 30 different sites like CNN, CNBC, and Facebook, and so on and so forth. Each single piece of data is living on a separate silo. So raw data by itself is not always valuable, but when you aggregate it and condense it into a data set, it actually becomes data rich. And that's one of the concepts that we're actually using with putting annotations on the blockchain here, is that the Overweb, the blockchain can support up to 21 megabytes per block. So because of that, if we stick in 21 megabytes, just so you know, is like a web page. That's about the size of a web page. So we were able to source annotations from multiple places and stick them on a block. We are basically creating richer data sets with condensed annotations that already exist, or annotations that are being generated as people are using the internet. So the three levels of this is obviously your validator, your Dapp, and your developer. So we want developers to be able to just use JavaScript as a universal language for the Overweb, and then write smart contracts on the Overchain. But our concept of a Dapp and of a validator and of a developer is really around helping to build a governance structure so that you can essentially integrate this into your Dapp and it be a measuring stick for your governance. So a lot of Dapps are dealing with fraud, they're dealing with misinformation, but they're also dealing with duplicate identities. So when you have a Dapp, for instance, that's decentralized, and let's say people are using it for payments, I could have 20 different wallets associated with the same Dapp, and nobody even knows that. And the wallet I'm using could be coming from a number of different sources, but it's all, could be Ethereum based. And that's one of the problems a lot of Dapp developers have, is managing the authenticity of their Dapp and the transactions that are happening on their Dapp. So we hope to also curate cross-chain use cases. Payments is one of them, identity is another, but the most important fundamental concept is how are we layering data in the real world, and then how can we move that into a decentralized environment. So as you go into the next slide, what we're really going deep on here is, hold on one second. Can you please put yourself on mute, whoever has their self off of mute? Situation and the reasons behind this legal I think it's Elizabeth Garth.
Whoever's running this
Nikki,
Zoom should be able to mute her.
I can't tell where it's coming from.
Elizabeth Garst.
That's my mom. I apologize.
What did I do?
Just mute everybody but the speaker.
Just mute everybody.
You are muted, Mom.
Okay. Can you go to the next slide now? Thank you. David? All right, thank you. So as you see here, I just talked about this with, there's 5 areas. There's a lot of information here, so I just want to slow you down and understand that the idea of the web is that it's an open space to innovate. You could be able to, launch and build amazing ideas, and you can support people with this. And one concept that is very popular is WordPress. WordPress allowed, over 50 million sites to be created at one point in time, and now there's about 500 million WordPress sites on the internet. When you look at WordPress, it's been an ecosystem of plugins, themes, and all types of resources that allow people to leverage technology without having to worry about coding. And basically, as a content management system, it's been used for banking, it's been used for e-commerce, it's been used for a number of different applications. So when you think about the overweb, we want to build a DApp framework with the overweb that allows people to have that same openness, where they're not limited by the way we think or govern the overweb, but more so they're included as a important aspect of what society needs to thrive. As the world digitizes more services and resources, people will be looking to build value propositions through apps. And the idea of a DApp being decentralized will be distributed. So you have some dApps that are decentralized and some dApps that are distributed. So as you go into the next slide, the next slide really will speak to the idea of smart tags and all the different things we can tag. When you think about tagging now, Google Tag Manager allows you to tag anything on your site, but hashtags was another phenomenon that was utilized for people to understand how they could tag their posts. So I could technically create a hashtag about anything by just using a hashtag. So the idea of a smart tag is the same power, is that as soon as you tag something in the overweb, it can be tracked in perpetuity. And that's very powerful because just like a hashtag, if I want to go and do a keyword search and see all the posts that are associated with like COVID-19 as a hashtag, I will see all this information that's connected to this hashtag, but it's not necessarily intuitive. So here, the idea of smart tag is being applied, but we also want to be able to add governance so that when we have a smart tag, what is smart about the tag? Well, the idea of it being smart is that it's condensed information with this governance model that we talked about. So as you go on to the next slide, the idea of a digital nation is really something I'll let David speak to again, and then maybe I'll jump in again for some of the other slides that are coming up. So David, do you want to take it from here?
Yeah, I'll take it. I didn't realize I was muted. The problem that the digital nations is dealing with is that people are retreating to more intimate spaces for more authentic conversations. Getting away from trolls is another big one as well. But what happens is we're isolating ourselves, we're further fragmenting things, we're opening ourselves up to confirmation bias and groupthink. So it is really good that people have these new spaces like Mighty Networks and Discord and everything, but it also means that those conversations and the knowledge that's being generated isn't available for everyone else. But with the digital nation, they have their own layer dedicated over the web, yet at the same time, they have access to the same universal knowledge graph that everybody has, and they can contribute knowledge that they're creating within their digital nation to the graph. And they're incentivized to do that because that's how they're going to get rewarded in tokens by the people outside of their digital nations actually using the information. So a digital nation would be formed around a common purpose, so it'd have a code of conduct, a code of content, a mission. And they would have tokens. The tokens, when you become a member, when you have some holdings of tokens in your digital nation, and those tokens can earn, they can earn more tokens, basically. They can multiply based on how well the digital nation is doing in terms of what kind of information it's generating and how many people are active in that digital nation. Josh, you want to jump in here a little bit on this?
Yeah, to keep it simple, digital nations are a way to build social systems in America and around the world so you can digitize existing people that need resources to thrive. So for instance, a digital nation can represent LGBTQ communities, it can represent minority communities, it can also represent gamers. But the key is that they can congregate and have their own governance through their DApp, and they can exercise their beliefs in this safe space so that they can leverage a technological environment for their needs. And social systems already exists. The thing is, how do we digitize a modern social system? And that's the concept of a digital nation being applied.
Yep. I'm not going to talk too much here. I'm just going to say that we do have an NFT strategy. I mean, first and foremost, our annotations are NFTs. We're also doing low energy NFTs because of the type of blockchain we're using. And we're doing an experiment where we're going to be partnering with some different productions, film and television or streaming video, and looking to see if we can work with those productions to actually finance them through two different types of NFTs, both collectible NFTs, which most people know about now, but also security NFTs for quote unquote associate producers that would actually earn a revenue allocation and have privileges. I'm not going to talk any more about that other than to say that we are in discussions with a film about Ethiopian history, a science-based animated children's series called Nano, and a nature-based animated series called Pajamas, which is actually history for me. So at this point, I want to just mention that we've done a cursory market analysis, knowing that this is something that would be very useful for researchers, and we came up with a serviceable, obtainable market about $4 billion for the 75 million researchers that could use a system like this. But really I want to do is bring on Susan Eustace of Wintergreen Research and the Government Blockchain Association to talk about a report that she did on the overweb and misinformation. So Susan, are you ready to go? Is Susan still here? Is she on mute? Let's see. Okay. I don't see her. So we'll have to maybe pick her up later if maybe she got cut off somehow. So, but anyway, suffice to say, Susan did an amazing report. I got disabled. I can't go back to screen. Nikki, can you get me access to share screen again? Because Susan's not here. We're actually closing this up.
You can do multi-participant sharing too, so you don't have to keep handing the host around.
Yeah, that would be a good idea.
It's right there on your screen share menu when you go up, multi-participant.
Okay, yeah. Josh, you want to quickly go through this last little bit before we go to the futurist?
Yeah, so basically, the main thing I want to share is that I need to share with you all that we're basically launching our hackathon, and our hackathon is basically set up to launch our testnet. And our testnet is going to be how we launch our global conference at the end of the year. And the goal is just, like I said, to apply these use cases over time. So basically, that helps us to identify the resources needed that we could leverage all of that to launch our blockchain successfully.
Josh, you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. Yes.
You went out.
Yeah, there was a lot of clicking coming from Josh's side. Are you walking or moving? When you're talking, there's a lot of clicks in the background.
Josh.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
You're a little garbled.
Just continue. Go ahead. Just keep going. I got fix
We can hear you now. We can hear you now without clicks too, so it's good.
Okay, basically, well, I'm actually hopping on a plane, unfortunately. Can you continue, David?
Yeah. Okay. So really quickly, we're creating social governance Dapps. This is a new concept. Actually, we're creating a platform that allows other people to create social governance Dapps. And there's three main parts of this. So stakeholder incentives, ethical governance, and then social contracts. So social contracts are like smart contracts, but they're embedding the more social governance aspects of working with information. So that's one of the innovations that we're doing. And I'm not going to go too deep into this, but basically when you have a digital nation, it's essentially a social contract that has a purpose and an action. So this is really the mission. These are the things that people within the digital nations do. With respect to the purpose, you have stakeholders and incentives. Their stakeholders have identities and have resources that they can bring to the table. The actions, there's processes and there's utility. The processes include connecting information, there's benchmarking that's going to happen, and there's some risk management as well. This is more something that Josh is the one who's fluent on this, so I'm just going to move on and just say that we are also, as we said, we have a token, and that's going to have three main areas that it is focused on. One is really creating this digital social system that maintains the social contracts for our ethical governance systems. The second thing is the information hub. So how can the tokenomics support the development of this knowledge graph that allows for 360-degree context? And then the third part is really sovereign economics, which allows these digital nations to exist both in the physical realm, but also in the digital realm, and in a sense, building a cyber physical world. So at this point, we're gonna open this up to our esteemed panel of internet futurists and leaders. I'm gonna ask each one of them to give us up to 3 minutes of commentary. And it would be great if you could just start out with your name, your primary affiliation for this moment, and the perspective that you're bringing from that. So I'm gonna take this off share and invite our futurists to jump on in. Who wants to go first? Hey, Greg, how about you?
First.
Oh, May, you want to go first? All right, great.
I am Meilin Fang. I'm chair of the People-Centered Internet, which I co-founded with Vint Cerf. I served as Douglas Engelbart's chair of his core planning committee from 2000 to 2004. This Overweb really reminds me a lot about the work of Douglas Engelbart and the open hyperdocument system. It has so many resonances. I think the idea of NFTs is actually providing a big missing link that we've needed up to now to make real Engelbart's vision from then. Ted Nelson and Douglas Engelbart both shared this vision of an annotated web. They each called it different things. The idea of micropayments for contributions was Ted Nelson's, and he really had the whole system worked out in Xanadu. So I noticed the history didn't show some of this thing, but all of that was there at the very, very beginning of the internet. And it was Douglas Engelbart's greatest regret that his team left him from SRI to go to Xerox PARC, because to go down the track of personal computing. And he really felt that that would be dangerous because we were allowing individual agendas to actually override collective social good. And he always believed that the internet should be networks of improvement communities. And the NIC was the basis of the connection to the internet for each university, the Network Information Center. He felt like now, and we are in his future, the NIC would be the network improvement community, where these social contracts, which have just been shown by Joshua and David, it's really amazing and wonderful to see the realization of some of the ideas that have been discussed since the 70s. So thank you both, all of you, for inviting me.
Thank you, May. Who's next? All right, Greg.
Oh.
Hi, so my name is Greg Lindahl, and I am currently an astronomer working at the Smithsonian Astrophysical Observatory. But in the somewhat recent past, I have been both a search engine guy and a web archivist. So I liked the comment in the very beginning about the attention economy, because one reason that the attention economy has grown on the web is actually a feedback loop that's driven by search engines. Search engines take clicks on results as a ranking signal. And so of course, that ends up being a winner take all and also drives click fraud. But that aside, listening to this conversation, one thing that sprang into my mind is something that is almost what you want, but isn't. And that is Wikipedia. So Wikipedia is kind of an annotation service, but it's not, right? It's building articles, and it's simultaneously great and terrible at the same time. And I love it to death as a result. For example, when you edit a Wikipedia page, you're not creating complete sentences. It's not an annotation, it's an edit, and that's kind of different. And then if you want to converse about something, there's a talk page for every page, but there's no user interface to see that as any kind of conversation. But all the data for this is available. So one thing that would be interesting as an annotation service would be to attempt to take Wikipedia and turn it into an annotation service and see what happens, because it has a lot of usage. So I will leave you with that.
I think that's a great idea. And our hope is that developers who get excited by those types of ideas will just create them on top of this blockchain. So thank you so much, Greg. I said your hand went up first or last, Chris.
Yeah, sure, thanks. I'm Chris Balls, and currently working on a streaming web server, web app server, and actually did a little work with metadata being integrated into DNS, just as my own project. But my background is that mostly between financial and consumer web, Apple, E-Trade, Yahoo. And so I really enjoyed your talk, especially because I did not know about the history of annotation. That's really cool to know about. And so thank you for that. And really enjoy the creativity that you guys are. I think it's just fantastic. So I have a few things came to mind. First thing came to mind for me was actually, you probably know about this, but I'll mention it anyway for the rest. A basic attention token. So I'm a big fan of basic attention token. I do hold a tiny amount of that, just for full disclosure. And I will say that I definitely think that, well, BAT is one of the primary motivators behind that is Brendan Eich, and I worked a little bit with him on few aspects of JavaScript a long time ago, and he's definitely been a solid contributor to the open web and the shared web, which is what you guys are aiming toward. So if you can find a way to integrate with BAT, that might be good. Also, I didn't know about Tendermint. That's pretty cool. The first thing that came to my mind with your project is scaling. I'm sure, of course, you know, scaling on blockchain is really hard. And there are some pretty performant blockchains that have done delegated proof of stake. So I don't know what you guys are considering for performance, but scaling is just such a big challenge. Even delegated proof of stake, and maybe the new version of Ethereum with sharding would scale. I will say, I don't know if people are aware, but NFTs have been strong for many years now. In CryptoKitties came out in 2017. It was huge, and they're still around. And also, there are existing blockchain identity solutions similar to there are existing blockchain attention solutions like BAT. there are a bunch of those. So what I think a lot of people might appreciate is like some information on how you wouldn't need to reinvent a lot of these things, or if you are going to reinvent them, how much better yours will be and why. I know it gets really detailed, and because you're trying to cover so much, but I think a few specifics would be good. And then on curation, I maybe I missed it, but the curation part, I know it was addressed, but that just, and someone asked about that, I think in the chat, that would, curating is something, maybe machine learning could help with that, but it seems like a really hard problem to solve. Anyway, I think having this annotation is great, and thanks for enlightening us.
Yeah, well, thank you, Chris. Good comments. Definitely scaling is an issue. We will endeavor to make the blockchain as open as possible, so it should be able to work with basic attention token in some way, shape, or form. So
just one thing I want to mention real quick as far as it relates to scaling. The issue with scaling is because people are building streaming power on the blockchain, and the streaming capacity for blockchain is one of the biggest issues, where we are basically only doing certain things on chain and everything else will live off chain. Meaning we're not going to put a lot of the innovation on the blockchain. We're only putting the annotations on the blockchain. That's one of the things that you should keep in mind. That's one of the things that keep us from having a lot of risk in terms of scaling and getting adoption.
yeah, well, and thanks for the question around curation. We can address that a little later if we have time. So Christian, you want to jump in there?
Yeah, I'm not very skilled in any of. Am I heard right now? Am I unmuted?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We can hear you.
We're seeing double though. It looks like you have two pairs of glasses on.
Yes, one for sight and one for sun. I'll take the sight off and then I'll be blind. This is all very new to me, and it's all old school for you folks. Just to give you some background, I write movies and television projects. Been doing this for the better part of 30 plus years, and in technology, where some of my projects and David and I are working on several of them together. It's always interesting to me the ethical implications of all of what it is that you're all speaking to. And it's ethics usually lag tremendously behind technology, and I'm always looking at the sort of the dark side of things and where the potential, for that to come into play for the people, the unwashed masses out there that don't understand this. This is foreign to them, and trying to it's always just very interesting to how to try to quantify bias on an ethical scale, and in particular we have a project that deals in the nano world, and it's very interesting that in the world we're living in right now, that it's an invisible world that has devastated now the planet, has made this planet what we can't see with the naked eye, has affected the geopolitical landscape, social landscape. I mean, just any variables sort of in that realm and world, and where does it, where are we going to come out of the other end of this? And so those effects and those ethics, and we're trying to bring that into a couple of animation projects. And so again, this world is all very new to me, but it's fascinating, and a great deal of the story still to be written. So that's kind of where I'm coming from.
And one of the main reasons that I brought Christian onto this is because he and I are collaborating on bringing the technology, the Overweb, and where it can go to the spatial web, et cetera, onto the big screen and little screen productions. We think that there's a really strong opportunity to weave those technologies into stories and to introduce the technologies in those ways. And you know, as Joshua is keep on harping, we're really wanting to make this be a social governance thing. So Michelle.
Hi, my name is Michelle. I am co-founder and a director at Governance Research Institute, which is a nonprofit, and we basically research on e-governance and blockchain. So I'm really excited to be here. And you know, I'm really delighted that the project thinks about governance and digital nations, which is really important because when you have tokens and you have people or humans or maybe AI in the future, you wanted to think about how things and how humans should and an AI should be governed. And I love, you know, the token allocation part. I love, you know, the ethical governance and social contracts and incentive. I think one of the other things to really think about is, you know, what are the specific rights that each digital citizen have on the web. How could we deter from, you know, from malicious groups? How those should be governed, and what happens if, you know, there's situations like Parler, you know, when a group uses it and it gets, you know, almost taken off by centralized exchanges, you know. So I think it's really important to think about, oh, and then also the incentives as well, you know, the circulation of tokens, of governance tokens, I think needs to be a little bit more clear. If I participate, how would I be rewarded? What are some of the governance rights as a token holder, the governance token holders of this project? Would I be able to determine certain things? And I think it's really, really broad. And I know about Tinderment's governance system, but I think I would love to see the project having its own governance structure and voting structure as well in terms of proposal, execution, demonomics, and also, you know, rules and rights for each individual who participates in each governance or, you know, digital nation. And then also who are the council member, right? Who is the board of director? What are their rights? You know, is there a need for security council? Is there a need for check and balances within the governance system? And would it be decentralized or centralized? Would it be rotating or not? You know, so I think I'm excited to learn more about the governance structure as these are built up. And I'm really excited about this project because I think as a futurist myself, I think we are building the future of the web.
Well, thank you. Those were a lot of great questions, and certainly we're going to have to tackle these over time. It's not going to happen tomorrow, but yeah, definitely challenges and opportunities that we're going to need to address. And it's not just the council, as you're noting, it's really going to be the entire community coming together to make a lot of these decisions. Dan, are you ready to talk to us?
Sure, brother. Yeah, great to be here. What a wonderful group too on the panel. I mean, gee, just sterling people with such a great range of backgrounds. You know, from Christian there working out of media, and then all the other people coming from tech. Particularly love having Maylene on the call because it really is the DNA of the internet. She goes right back with Vin to the early days. It's really awesome, and to a lot of the early ideas that created the world we're living in now. And of course, we do recognize that Tim left a lot of things out. When he did HTTP, there was no identity layer, there's no security layer, there's no location layer. And so a lot of problems that we've occurred because he was really looking at it more as a, you know, at that time, really solving the problem of information transfer. But of course now it's been co-opted for use in commerce and other things. So I'm president and founder of the Spatial Web Foundation and of Versus.io, Versus Labs, which builds application toolkits for building spatial applications. So this is a new protocol, an open protocol just like HTTP. It's Hyperspace Transaction Protocol, HSTP, already has been handed over to IEEE, already have our committee numbers and everything. And so that's being fast-tracked as a social imperative protocol, because the executive director of IEEE feels the current web is so broken that the spatial web offers some potential to help with that. We do have the advantage of watching 25 years of the current web and how it's been misused. And so we've been able to build in self-sovereign identity, working with Evernym and the Evernym Foundation, Sovereign and other these kinds of things. And that brings along zero knowledge proofs and ownership of data and everything else. So the spatial web basically is really, in very simple layman's terms, we've got 25 years of 3D computer gaming over here on PlayStations and Xboxes and things like that. And over here we have 25 years of the World Wide Web, which has got now 8 billion web pages. And now Moore's Law and network speeds have grown to such a degree that now we can have a 3D World Wide Web, a web of spaces. And so that'll allow us to have a web of our city. In fact, a web of cities. In fact, an entire web for the entire planet, just like we have of all of our documents, but now of every space, every square millimeter of the planet. And then we can have spatial domains, and then we can have all the decentralization and exponential growth and new kinds of commerce and new kinds of education, new kinds of entertainment and gaming, everything. But now, instead of siloed 3D games or 2D World Wide Web, now we've got a 3D web. So that's the spatial web, and it's growing. We started in 2017, alpha in 2018, beta in 2019. Now it's spreading around the planet. We just won the European-wide drone contract. So Europe's very concerned about drones in the sky, from Amazon and DHL and FedEx and everybody, and maybe some not very good players. So we developed a complete global registration system for drones. And then we have three-dimensional geospatial programming, because we are a giant game engine for the planet, and everything's on blockchains. And then we've got a very advanced AI at the core of our system, which is the next generation up from neural nets. It's active inference AI coming out of University College London. Maybe some of you know Dr. Carl Friston. He's considered the #1 neuroscientist in the world, 250,000 academic citations, probably up for a Nobel in the next year or two. He's our chief scientist. And so a lot of really fun stuff happening with the spatial web. David and I have known each other for a while. And so we're excited with what you guys are doing with the Overweb. And you and Joshua have really thought this thing through really beautifully. I was really impressed with the presentation. A lot of thought went into it, and being able to tokenize, and you kind of created a framework that allows the evolution of the ideas to grow over time. So you're not going like, here it is and it's fixed. Here's a framework and it can grow. And so what we're doing in self-sovereign identity, that can work really already with what you guys are doing. I think other people have mentioned the BAT token and other kinds of things. So there's a lot of great stuff out there. It's really now an ecosystem play and a systems integration play. And we're really happy to work with you guys and integrate what you're doing with what we're doing in the spatial web. Yeah, I'm really, really impressed with the way you thought it through, and I think a great gift to the web, because even though we're building a spatial web, it'll probably take a decade for it to really reach 30% penetration, and maybe 50% penetration. We'll be using the World Wide Web for quite a while still. And so really fixing the current web is really crucial. And then integrating the best ideas into the next web, the spatial web, which is like an overweb as well. It's a new protocol. You can see all the way down through HTTP and TCP/IP email and the current web from the spatial web, but you can't see up. So you need a spatial web browser to see into the spatial web, because of course it's a three-dimensional kind of computer gaming environment. But they're all going to be integrated into one experience, just like we have email and the web integrated. So anyway, very, very exciting times. We're on the front edge of a renaissance. There's no doubt about it. This next 30 years will be looked at back in history as the moment when we changed our whole global civilization. We moved to a network economy running on tokens, and we're working right now with the World Bank and MIT and Yale on what's called the Open Climate Project. So we have a really advanced new climate trading platform for carbon credits and carbon markets. And the spatial web really unlocks a lot of solutions. So I encourage you all to go to Versus, VERSES, like universe, with an E, not versus like conflict. So versus.io, there's a lot of information on there. And we're collaborating. It's an open ecosystem. Protocol is out of our hands. Gave it to IEEE. And then we have application development toolkits, kind of like WordPress and Shopify for the current web. These are spatial toolkits that allow you to build spatial applications rapidly using Unity and other kinds of 3D tools. So anyway, great work. Really impressed with everything you guys are doing in the Overweb. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dan. And kudos for getting that new protocol to IEEE. That's amazing. Really an important step. I love the word renaissance, and I know that the CEO of Patreon was talking about a second renaissance, but then the other day I heard about regenaissance, like regeneration and renaissance coming together. Let's do it. I'm going to bring it to a brother that can probably talk a little bit about that, Jeremy.
Hey, good evening. How are you guys? I'm Jeremy Foreman. I'm based in Los Angeles. I have been a futurist since before the good old days. I'd like to say that at the turn of the century is when I started my content study of technological literacy. I was a student leader in 6th grade in a program called the Technology Student Association. And so it was formerly the American Industrial Arts Student Association, but it gave me this interesting, unique background and experience in basically problem solving and critical thinking and ideating. And it was the precursor to what we call pre-engineering now. But I've taken that with me and pursued social and behavioral sciences and kind of supporting human needs and addressing what our critical needs are in communities. So as it relates to different human systems and the intersection of science, technology, and society, I'm really interested in the ways in which you can tag the public sentiment in the Overweb and have a system to navigate visually through all of the data that's out there, to have those filters and to have the ability to, drill down. I love the idea of multiple personas as well, because I'm looking at how do we educate people in this 21st century environment with lifelong learning as an objective. And I know that there is the educational persona that I have when I am in my workplace environment, which might be different than my own personal academic, interests. I talk about 13th grade being life beyond high school, and several of us might be on that, and be in the 20th grade. And I'm interested in finding ways in which we can help people connect all of this data and information that's out there to frames of reference that are local to them, that are in their own language, that are, going to be culturally content and, culturally competent and relevant for them. So I'm interested in seeing with this social layer of the curation of content, David, like, how do you see that body of authority coming together and over what period of time? Because you're architecting a wild, wild west here. And I would be interested in kind of the participatory leadership aspects and the social community behaviors that would help this technology to be adopted en masse.
Well, thank you. That's a great question. I don't have an answer for it, but I can say that I know that it will be people like you and many others that will come together to help shape that. So thank you for being here, Jeremy. Dan Whaley, can you chime in?
Hey there. Yeah, I think I introduced myself before. Let's see. Listen, it's a big vision. You're trying to solve a lot of really important problems, and I totally applaud you guys for that. I definitely said that before, and just want to say that again. I think there's three things that I'd like to react to. One is scope, one is detail, and one is code. You're trying to do a lot. I don't know of I'm trying to think of an internet problem you didn't list that you were trying to solve. So it's, and running a software team that needs to ship code that does real stuff. I know how difficult it is to to get stuff done when you've got a lot of things that you're trying to do at once. So my first suggestion is just really a question about whether the scope needs to be narrowed just a touch to zero in on what the thing is that you're going to do. And I know when you get started, you want to paint the big vision, but what is that thing that you're really going to nail to begin with? And second thing, just on that scope thing, is that there are a bunch of communities out there that are just doing amazing work in, annotation, governance, identity and trust and misinformation. And so I definitely encourage you to connect with those communities and share and get feedback from them, because they're, some of them are becoming quite well advanced, and there's a lot of thought there. And I think if you want to recruit them into your vision, you need to connect with them. And so definitely want to encourage that. Second thing is about detail. I've seen a couple of your presentations so far. Nice vision. Now you need to bring the detail. You probably need some white papers that really focus in on key things that you want to do, especially if you're trying to recruit developers to ship Dapps in your store and so forth. So need to start working on what that detail around annotation. Annotation is such a big knotty problem. We've been working on this for a while. There's a lot to it. And so exactly how you're going to solve some of those problems and whatnot is probably important. And then the third thing is code. Got to ship code, got to code in the open. And I think somebody just asked in the chat, is this a for-profit or is this a nonprofit? And I think that to me is really wrapped around whether this project is going to be part of the open source community and a community project, or whether this is kind of a closely held project where you put it out there and there's it's mostly contributed by a small number of people or whatever. The more you start coding in the open, I think the better the dividends just pay huge. I'll just say one last thing. Don't do patents, please. I saw it on your slide. I think it really turns a lot of people off. I know what you're trying to do, which is you're trying to hold so that other people don't abuse, but I think there are other ways to achieve what you're trying to do without patents. And and just be careful with that. That's a sharp stick that can turn around the other way. Thanks for listening.
Well, thank you, Dan. Those are all great comments. And yeah, that patent is a longer conversation, which I hope we can have. And I'd be very interested to understand other ways to protect ourselves from people like Google and people that I won't say any more about that. But I will say that this is a public blockchain. It is an open source project. The coding will be done in public. We are about to publish the code out in the open now. So thank you for those comments. Trent, are you with us? There you are. All right.
Indeed, yes. Thank you very much. So I'm Trent Fowler. I'm a machine learning engineer, and I appreciate both the invitation and the excellent presentation that you put on. So I'm enormously excited by the vision that you laid out. I've been reading about the semantic web and the Principia Cybernetica project since I was in college about 10 years ago, and I fully buy that there's a lot of power in what you're trying to do. So to piggyback a bit on what Dan said, I would recommend that you check out a startup called Rome Research if you haven't already. They are building what they call a tool for network thought, and it has some of the same features that you're hoping to engineer in a layer over the web, including things like smart tagging and annotation. And more recently, they've begun to roll out multiplayer graphs where people are able to read the same book together and take notes together in one space and sort of mix and match and remix the thoughts that are coming from all the different minds. And something really magical happens when you've removed all the friction from people collaborating in that way. One of the sort of, maybe not criticisms, but things that I'd like to point out is that in an earlier slide, you said that this is sort of shifting away from the attention economy, where you're incentivized to stay on a website for as long as it takes the advertisers to put impressions in front of you. It occurs to me that that's not quite right, because it seems like the monetization strategy that you're going to employ for content creators in the overweb is going to involve them making insightful comments and then people paying them in proportion to the amount of value they get out of that, which is presumably going to be measured by the number of views it gets or the amount of engagement that it gets. And I think that if that's the mechanism you're using to drive the incentives for creators to get involved in the project, you might have some of the same issues where being provocative is profitable. And that could just be an artifact of myself not really understanding the governance structure very well. So maybe you've thought that through and you have ways of ameliorating it, but you could have those same problems. I'm really inspired by the graph work that you want to do. And I actually work with graph databases quite a lot in my day job. And I'll just note that that's going to be a really heavy lift. In engineering graphs into it, there's this long tail of very tedious data entry problems that you run into when you're trying to define the entities in the graph and define the relationships to the graph and set it up in a way such that it's easy to traverse or run algorithms on. So I hope you figure it out, but I imagine that's going to be very difficult. And then finally, I really like the idea of digital nations. So if you haven't checked out the project Aragon, I would recommend you look into them. They are trying to build the world's first blockchain-based digital jurisdiction, where you can stand up an organization and define laws, and it's all sort of handled through the mechanisms that you've come to expect on the blockchain, and NFTs and Dapps and that sort of thing. So I imagine that there are things you could pull from their efforts that might help yours as well. But one thing that you mentioned was that digital nations would be able to have their own layer on top of the overweb. And you were going to try to work the incentives such that they wouldn't silo themselves and become sort of an echo chamber of the sort that are endemic on the web today. And I'll just note that people are really, really good at doing that. They're really good at siloing. So you better think very carefully about the incentives and get it right, or else you're going to engineer a more sophisticated version of the Twitter echo chambers that have wrecked recent elections and proliferated misinformation all over the world. So I hope you figure all of that out, and I wish you best of luck in the project, though. It's very, very interesting.
Well, thanks, Trent. You said a lot right there. And yeah, I think this is going to be an iterative thing. The solutions aren't going to be solved immediately, but they can be solved over time as long as we have a flexible platform. I would love to dig into Aragon, and I don't see any reason why they're creating digital nations, basically. I don't see why their digital nation couldn't be used in the overweb, and all of a sudden they have their own layer. That we're building it so that it should be interoperable that way. In terms of Roam, I really like them. I'm a Roam user for sure. It's kind of like we're doing a little bit like Roam, but on the internet in a way.
Yeah, Roam for the internet.
Yeah. But yeah, thanks. It's really awesome. And I really appreciate the work that you and the Da Vinci Institute and Thomas Frey are doing. I'm really a big fan. So thanks for being here. Yeah, really appreciate you. Fasa, are you still here?
I am. How's everybody doing? FASA, like Davida mentioned before, I'm kind of like a digital ecologist, working with a lot of really cool people in this space. Really focus on the applications for the overweb as it pertains to health. It's like 45 to 50% of people in this world use the internet for to answer questions around their health and to look for context and meaning before they go to a doctor. So if you think about the dangers of misinformation, it's one thing if, you buy something that maybe you didn't want to buy, or if somebody, there's a lot of nefarious things that can happen on the web, that when you start making health related choices based off of misinformation, then it becomes, I mean, obviously your health being in jeopardy, that's the only thing that's keeping you in this world. So the opportunity to use the overweb, you can forgive me, I'm tired, it's been a long day, but the opportunity to use the overweb as a means for creating additional context for digital nations. And when I see digital nations, I see hypertension as a digital nation. All those people that have hypertension, none of them want it. So they're all searching the web, looking for answers, looking for opportunities. And the opportunity to be able to have additional context and to think together and collaborate together with researchers and with health and wellness professionals and with the brands that serve them to create regenerative ecosystems. And somebody had mentioned AI being able to help parse a lot of that content and to be able to create value there. That's something that my team and I are really working on, adapting a lot of this technology for. We are using AI for blockchain. We're going to be launching our own crypto towards the end of this month, probably early June. We have our own exchange as well that we'll be launching as well. And just really looking for ways to explore what can be done by creating increased context for people that are at risk and vulnerable to misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation on the web. So we're really excited to be working with David and with Joshua and everybody else that's involved with the Overweb project. There's some really cool opportunities that the Spatial Web is something that we've had a lot of discussion around. We are partnering with some community-based organizations that I think would be really interested in that technology as well. And so I hope that leaving this conversation that there's an interest towards moving into other ways of collaborating. That's it. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for being here. So Nikki, are you okay with 10 to 15 minutes? How do you feel for a question and answer? Oh, you're on mute.
Yes, I can stay on for a few more minutes. Yeah, I'm really enjoying the conversation. So thank you, everyone.
Awesome. Well, I see Major's here, Alden's here, Vero's here. If you all want to throw your voice in the ring, happy to have you, and also opening it up for questions. So.
All right. Hey, guys. Major Dream Williams here, coming all the way from a little island in the middle of the Caribbean. And first, I want to say that listening to all of you and I'm honored to be here. I don't feel nearly as smart enough to be here, but the beauty about this is this is why I'm here, right? Because access, people, the idea that what you guys are talking about, I get, understand, but the people that really need to know this have no clue that we're even here talking about what we can do to help them. You know, everything that we're talking about is right in line with how I think. The aspect that born into a world with rules and systems that we don't even know if they're for us or against us, but we have to try to figure out how to make it work. Now we've had enough of a runway to figure out, okay, how can we make this next level? Because we're operating on an internet that wasn't made for us to deal with. We just kind of took the technology and figured out how we can whip things around. So now we've come to a high enough viewpoint and say, all right, it's been running for so long, and there's a certain group of people that are still not benefiting from the things we benefit from. We've all come from them, so we understand how far we've gone and how far back they are. So it's really good to have a group of folks who are thinking about that. So I live here in Puerto Rico with quite a few folks that are in the crypto space, blockchain space, NFT space, which is something that I get really excited about. So when I sat with David and Joshua for the first time, and they're telling me these things, in my mind, I'm just like, we're talking about freedom strategies, because ultimately this is what we're really trying to play with, and to be able to give people their own bit of autonomy. And this is one thing that I am afraid of, that is the idea of the governance and how we are, because I'm Jamaican, right? So there's Kingston, Jamaica, and I grew up in the South Bronx, New York. So inherently, I grew up around aggressive people, but aggressive people that are good people. Now, when I've been in many different communities, many different intentional communities, you know, the Burning Man groups, and you know, I live down here with Brock Pierce and a lot of these, you know, other folks that are in that space. And I hear about the governance and I hear about, you know, the working, but I also hear it from the people that are way far removed from how things are really going to affect people. So, you know, I think where I stand and what I am definitely looking for is, you know, just really the way along. Same here with Foss. What Foss was saying, like the way to really connect with local people that really are the ones that are forgotten. You know, look, I grew up in the South Bronx, but I can't necessarily fully tell you what they want until, like, they tell you they want Walmart, Target, but not really understanding how it affects the mom and pops and the overall community. So you know, the questions that I have is when is it for a community? When is it okay to allow the community to make decisions based off of the things that they don't know? I'm here in Puerto Rico talking to Puerto Ricans about what is going on off island that could work better for them. And they have no clue what's going on. So all they're doing is really trying to resist. And with technology moving as fast as it will, you know, we're talking about 20 years away for 10 years away. I mean, that's not that long. Between then and now, how do we engage really so that these conversations, you know, are, you know, have a couple of other people who, you know, are, you know, maybe a little bit smarter than me, but, you know, are brave enough to join and really be inspired. You know, and that's mine. I'm just happy to be here. You know, I live in Puerto Rico, and with me daily, I deal with locals who you know, who've never left the island in like 10, 20 years. And the goal of what we're trying to do is, how are we going to affect them? So I'll always ask that. And I think there's a lot here that is exactly what we want. And again, you know, I'm not a programmer. I'm not, you know, I'm just somebody that gets a couple of things done. I'm trying to do internet down here, renewable energy, and really unlock the Caribbean. But remember, all of these have to be freedom strategies for all of us, not just the ones who are here. So that's mine.
Yeah, thank you. Amazing question. Definitely something we're going to need to deal with, and we'll be knocking on your door, brother. Vero.
Hi.
Hi.
Thanks for that beautiful commentary, Major. It's great to see you. And David, congratulations on this fantastic work, and my honor to be here. I'm a visionary architect, for those that I don't know, and the chief design officer for an organization called New Earth Now. And so when we're talking about the spatial web, I'm getting really excited, and I'm starting to think about the way that digital nations can turn into virtual spaces that we can truly occupy. And I want to ask you, what's your vision for the way that this can impact the world in a really physical sense, in a way that we all experience it? And so it's a little bit building off of Major's commentary here, is how do you truly see this technology impacting the world in a way that could be regenerative and benefit all beings and create more inclusivity and all of those great things that we vision together?
Wow. Well, I'm just going to say a couple of things that come off the top of my head. But first of all, it's not really about what I envision, because we're creating a platform that's going to allow amazing people like yourself and all the other people on this call to take their expertise and build what's necessary and needed to actually create new types of experiences, new types of collaboration, et cetera. So if a community came together around a particular issue and created a constellation of bridges and conversations about the information in that area and connected it all up, that information could not only be available to create 360-degree context on the web, but it could also be used to create 360-degree context out in the real world. So the work that we're talking about here with the Overweb can actually feed the digital worlds that Dan is working on. So when you're in a digital world, whether it's in a virtual world like Ascendia, a metaverse, or whether it's in a digital twin of the physical realm, that information, that universal knowledge graph, that information can be served to people. Like, it's a context engine that could be used anywhere where that context is valuable. So if I'm driving down the street or riding on a bike, how about that? I'm driving on a bike down the street and I'm looking at a particular sign about a national park. It could show me all the context for that, and I can understand what plants are in that national park. I could understand when it was founded. I can understand all the different cogent information that would be related to that. Maybe I could also do that about specific plants, being able to get the information about a particular type of tree and understand, what its growing conditions are, how it interacts with different environmental changes. I could understand the different things if I have the context. So what we're seeing is this possibility of bringing context to the spatial web. Dan, you want to add anything?
No, I think that's really well said, David. I mean, what you've got is you've got two kinds of spatial webs. Really, you've got the digital overlay of the physical world. So obviously, that's really helpful in measuring carbon output and things like that. So now you can have a proper carbon accounting. You can take data in from low Earth orbit satellites, drones, cars, sensors, and build a world model, kind of Bucky Fuller's idea of having a kind of a dashboard for the planet. What's cool about that is that everybody on the planet has access to it now, almost the way the World Wide Web does. So, and then the key to it all is we're building a Jarvis-like AI right now. That's what this new active inference AI enables. It's contextual AI, as David kind of points out. And I think what Iron Man gets right is kind of the quality of interaction. He's just, Tony Stark just talks to Jarvis. But what they got wrong is, once you build one Jarvis, you just hit a button and make 8 billion copies of Jarvis, and everybody has their own personal AI. And then it custom fits itself to you and does tasks for you and other kinds of things. So instead of giving everybody a smartphone, which seemed impossible, I mean, think about it. In 1990, if you interview a futurist, and I was a futurist in 1990, and people interviewed me. If they interviewed me and they said, well, what's it like in 2020? And I will say, see that Cray supercomputer over there? That's $35 million, and only 150 companies have them. We're going to give everybody who wants one on the planet a Cray supercomputer by 2020. Well, of course, you're just a lunatic. Of course, that's not happening, but we did. I mean, the iPhone 12 was 7 times as fast as the Cray supercomputer from 1990. And not only that, we're going to give them a Cray supercomputer. We're going to put every piece of information ever done online. And then every product that's ever been made can be delivered to your house. I mean, just a remarkable set of things we've done that do over time, they haven't done it yet, but they will over time level the playing field. Because now Bill Gates is using the same interface, because it's not about the phone. It's not about the interface. It's about the richness of the shared commons of wisdom and knowledge that we call the World Wide Web, and soon to be the spatial web. So suddenly everybody has a window into that, whether it's with AR glasses or a smartphone or a virtual reality headset, whatever it is, everybody's in that space together, and creativity wins, and data is the new oil. And so if we can strip away your identity from your data so you can sell your data, then you have an income stream worldwide. So you can kind of see, this is radical stuff, right? I mean, this is radical stuff, because basically 50% of the normal factory and office jobs are gone by 2035. The largest social impact, we're not even talking about it really, a huge social disruption impact for the developed nations. But there's other things emerging that will offset that. Retraining, upskilling, learning how to be an entrepreneur in a digital economy, paying for your data, paying you for your data, many other things are coming. Anyway, so yeah, the Spatial Web and the Overweb really have similar objectives, and that is, and then we have channels and filters and AIs in there, so that if you walk into Times Square, you're not just seeing a million AR advertisements. You know, you can do what you're doing now. I just want the Yelp channel. You know, okay, I want to see an Italian restaurant within 5 minutes walking distance of me that has at least a top 10 rating in this area. So the AIs and the spatial web and filtering and channeling, these kinds of things really do work together to give everybody a better, don't forget, the other thing too is this is really remarkable, and I want you all to understand this. This is fundamental. We know what the top AI in the world is right now, because we have Google DeepMinders, MIT, University College London, all on our AI team. We know the state of the market, and we know what's coming in 2025 and 2030 because we're building it. And the average citizen in 2030 will have more AI than the largest corporations have today. It's just ridiculous. Now, it was one thing to give everybody a $35 million supercomputer. We've done that. Now we're going to give everybody not just access to information, but Jarvis. I have no idea what that's going to do, but clearly it's going to unlock a lot of creativity and a lot of productivity. It's going to be an amazing world we're stepping into. And that's why people are calling it Renaissance 2.0.
Yeah. And so, Vero, just to finish up, so spatial web is one aspect, context. Then the other thing is, I think the web is going to help people meet people to collaborate like never before. Right now, there's probably 100,000 people in the world that I should be talking to, that I could be working with. And, especially when we're talking about these important, your regeneration of the world, there's so many different aspects of it. And there's so many people working on it all over. If I can find those people that I'm supposed to work with.
Well, and David, the other thing is, because of tokenization, your cool interactions with a friend in China and a friend in Brazil, and you make this thing. That is the new business. We're all in experience space from now on. It's called the experience economy. And so as you create cool creations, not just music and films, but other kinds of things, avatars and dancing unicorns and other kinds of cool entertainment or educational experiences where you really can really travel through a black hole and understand the physics of it. So these kinds of things now will be tokenized and rewarded. You don't really need a big corporation, as we've seen. We just raised $6 million with green NFTs for the Open Earth Foundation, which is one of our foundations. And it was just we did the carbon offset for any of the calculations that were done for the NFTs, and people love that. And so we raised $6 million for our nonprofit in partnership with people and some of the other artists. So it's just an indication that there's, we're losing the steady paycheck of going to work 9 to 5, 40 hours a week, but we're gaining, creativity, entrepreneurialism at a tokenized level worldwide. So really awesome. Hey, Major.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. Fantastic comments. Really appreciate it.
I just get super hyped. You got me super excited about this. Just everything just worked up. Yeah, for sure. With that being said, there was a lot of things you said in there that I was super excited about. But your the carbon, you said that you raised $6 million, like sequestering carbon from, help me out. Like that kind of blew me away.
No, so here's the idea. A lot of people were concerned. They're doing these NFTs, and then Ethereum's still proof of work, so it actually grinds out a lot of use of carbon to do an NFT. And so some people were kind of going like, oh, gee. So then we were already working with the World Bank and MIT and Yale on an open thing called the Open Climate Project to deliver green, basically carbon credits that can be tokenized. And so we just put the two together and said, okay, we'll offset whatever in fact, we'll more than offset whatever the carbon footprint is of the NFT. And so then everybody went, oh, awesome, great, let's do that. And then it funds the nonprofit, which helps to support those ideas. So these are just indications of the new kinds of business models that are now possible that really weren't even a year or two ago,
Yeah. That's beautiful. What you're speaking to is really giving people incentives to improve themselves and the world with these tokens. So it's a beautiful thing. We've got a president in the house with her hands raised up. Can you introduce yourself? Come off mute. You're on mute.
Hello, my name is Stephanie. I wanted to find out, this is really fascinating. I'm still trying to wrap my head around the NFT, but I wanted to find out if the developers have cybersecurity in place to prevent cybercrime.
Well, the blockchain that we're building on is optimized for cybersecurity. A lot of the cyber fraud that happens is really human error. So we can address the machine aspect of it and get it as perfect as possible. And then there's still the possibility that people make mistakes. And yeah, we're definitely very, very much cognizant of that. It's a huge problem, and I don't know to what extent that we're going to be able to solve it completely, but we're going to do our best on the Overweb to make it not be a place where people are getting scammed and defrauded and cyber trolled and all these things that are happening on the open web right now, on the Wild Wild West. So thank you for that question.
Well, you can contact me. I can leave my information and maybe we can talk.
Okay, could you put your information in the chat? And by the way, my friend Sam De La Paz reminded me that this chat has a lot of really important and valuable information in there. And if you want to put your information in there, I will be copying the public chat and making it available to everybody who's RSVP to this. Alden, you're next. Brother Alden.
Hi, David.
Hey.
Great. Thank you so much. Gosh, I need enzymes to digest these conversations. It's fantastic. So a little on my background. I just for introducing. Hi, everyone. I'm Alden Bevington. Let's see. I've been thinking about this stuff for a long time. I was with Dan Whaley at the founding of Hypothesis, actually, but also spent many years as the kind of closest person to John Perry Barlow, and also a very close friend of Ted Nelson. And so these are not new ideas, and I know there's been many goes at them. First of all, I want to recognize your capacities, David, to reach into the future and feel what's there, at least in one reality tunnel or multiple reality tunnels. And so I'm going to put on my pragmatist hat. First of all, say that I think that whoever is Otter AI or whoever is doing the robot transcription, I reckon if your talk and what Dan was just downloading into our brains was just put on as the soundtrack to an animated feature that your colleague is that was presenting earlier, the filmmaker, I think that would be very useful. And that kind of comes down to my point. I feel like for me to really grok this, I'm very much oriented towards user experience. And I want to know, what is my life going to be like with this experience? And so I think that would be a really useful task for you all I know it's not about interfaces, Dan mentioned multiple, but even to just for people to dream into it. And then also choose, of all of those features, which is the trim tab, which is the one that you could change people's behavior and the way that they interact with the internet enough for them to like get marinated enough to tip them into thinking all this other stuff was just the way of things. And another thing that came up, is in my brain is the governance issue. About 12 years ago, I made an encyclopedia called the Open Collaboration Encyclopedia, which is 700 pages of looking at how do what are the standards and processes for creating governance in open source projects, and what is the role of open source in the future of our economies and political systems and all of this. And, as being Barlow's protege of sorts, I've been asked a lot about these things because he's often, you know, misrepresented as being an advocate of like some Wild West, and that really wasn't the point. I mean, I'm actually in Wyoming right now, right up the road from Barlow's grave, actually, and I'm going to go visit him. So if anyone wants me to bring him any offerings, just find me through my email. I guess I'll send it to y'all. But main point is that they had a social contract. They didn't. His vision was really around like having. I actually pulled something up from the Declaration of Independence that it says. Declaration of Independence of Cyberspace. He says, where there are real conflicts, where there are wrongs, we will identify them and we will address them by our needs. We are forming our own social contract. This governance will arise according to the conditions of our world, not yours. Our world is different. And I think that this nut has not been cracked. Actually, some years after the declaration was sent into cyberspace, Lawrence Lessig released a paper with Jack Goldsmith called Grounding the Virtual Magistrate that I really recommend that y'all look at. And they were, there's been attempts at this. Anyways, you all have got a huge smorgasbord of issues. First and foremost, even if nothing is pulled off, I recognize your roles as the people that abide in the future that feed it back to the rest of us. But in simple terms, if you can find what is the one trim tab, here's my question. What is the one trim tab of all of these things that you think you could actually pull off and it would pull everything else in the direction you want to go in?
My quick answer off the top of my head is enabling people to meet each other on web pages, but I'm not totally sure. I think we're going to do some experimentation. I know we're half an hour over. I want to just say if there's any last comments, anybody like short 30 seconds, popcorn.
Come visit Puerto Rico. We would love everybody down there. I'll host.
Sounds great.
Anyone else? Corey, you want to say hello? Melinda?
Hey, this is Solid Truth out of Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm an artist, a spoken word artist, but I'm also a graphic artist, and I'm also a former studier of computer engineering. I would really love to be able to have NFTs, not only for right now, but when I die and when my descendants come about. So everything that you guys are talking about is very interesting to me. As a newcomer to the blockchain and crypto technology system, but an old ancient person that the auntie of engineering, I really am glad that there are people who are really looking forward to making sure that we can go forward with technology and that we can protect our intellectual property, but also continue to do things that are going to be valuable for our descendants. So I really appreciate this platform and I've enjoyed the discussion. So I just want to say thank you.
Thank you, Solid Truth. Anyone else? Corey?
Yeah. Good evening. Good evening. I'll just say that yes. All right. Yes is what I'll say. Yes to everything. I had a very good conversation today about a very important application. And at the end of the day, what I always say to you guys is my focus, my emphasis, my interest is in changing the very fabric of the utility of the tool that we call the internet, and having infrastructure that can operate independent of some of the systems and structures that I know the government reinforces right now. So I'm with you guys all the way.
Thank you, Melinda. Hey, Corey. Corey's gonna be a validator. Yeah, our first
validator. Yeah, I came in like 20 minutes ago, but I know I met David and you guys, and you and Josh were down in PR, so Puerto Rico, a few weeks back, hanging out with you guys and stuff like that. So I wanted to be a validator, support the project in any way I can, and just keep at it, man. Keep at the hard work, and you know, I chat with Joshua all the time. I know I'll be chatting with you in the future as well. So it looks like you got a big community that came on today. So, and I'm glad you guys are moving forward and looking forward to see what you guys are coming out with in the future.
Wait. Yo, Corey, I missed you while you were down here in Puerto Rico, man.
What's up, brother?
Next time, man. I got you.
Okay, yeah. I'll be back. I'll be back probably in about I'm coming back down probably about 3 weeks, 3 or 4 weeks or so.
All right. Well, thank
I'll be
you
down.
all so much. Thank you, futurists. Thank you, people in the audience who have chimed in. Thank you to my co-presenters, Dan and Nikki, and thanks, Henry, for putting this together and hosting. Really appreciate everybody coming through. We're going to be sending out the notes, the chat. We'll send out the recording to the RSVP list. And please share it with people you think might want to be able to build something that wasn't possible before on this new open source, nonprofit platform that's for everyone. So thanks again, everybody. I really appreciate you.
Yes, thank you so much to all the speakers, influencers, and listeners for spending the evening and for your help in inventing a better future for the world. I feel this conversation needs to be continued. And if any of you are willing to speak to the CSPA members, please let me know. I'm always looking for speakers and volunteers. Thank you so much, everyone. Hope to see everyone again soon.
All right. Take care, everyone. Thanks, Nikki.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right. Take care.